Honorable Minister, honorable members, my name is Sanele Radebe, acting CFO.
Make a couple of pertinent points from here in the conversation.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Honorable members, it's a great honor the Minister has emphasized for us to be here, and I will go straight to the presentation. I will start by indicating what is the approach so that you can be comfortable that we understand your directives. We are not going to go through the legislative regime unless it's necessary. We will go straight to recommendations, and make a comment about that, of which I'm going to ask the Chief Executive of the National Skills Authority to do in a second. But I think it's also important for us to say that we understand, Chair, the mandate of our department, articulated very clearly in the white paper for post-school education and training. And may I emphasize that the Minister, as the Minister of Higher Education in the Republic of South Africa, is also tasked to head, as the head of Secretariat, the implementation of the human resource development strategy for the country. And so as we present, elements of that will also emerge in this. And I think it's important to alert the Chair and our honorable members that in the respect of the HRD strategy for the country, the Minister has already presented a revised strategy for the country that speaks to the specific needs of the country. And it emphasizes a set of skills that might never have been part of the work of the department, but in our plans, it becomes the focal area. And therefore, our institutions, the leadership of these institutions, have now accepted that this is the new focus going forward. So in the presentation, we only highlight those aspects, Chairperson. May I, in that regard, also further indicate that there are certain responsibilities and powers that are located within the functions of the Minister, which in our presentation, we are going to be stressing how those levers are going to be utilized to propel the system forward, as a response to the questions that the Chairperson has indicated. These will include the powers of the Minister to establish CETAs, the amalgamation and dissolution of CETAs. These are the powers that are within the law, the appointment of chairpersons. In this regard, Chair, you have seen in the gazettes in which the Minister has been advertising the new set of chairpersons of CETAs, that we have shifted from the emphasis of the past, where we are just are talking about minimum requirements. We articulate very clearly in the Gazette, the new requirements, which I think at some point we would like to share that if it becomes necessary. But the point there is we are gunning for the best possible people, the best possible standards that the minister has set in that regard. The minister has the powers for taking over the administration of this institution when it is required for her to do so, the regulations and so on. But there is also a particular angle which the AG has commented on, which is the signing of the service level agreement between the department and the chairpersons of the SETAs. We, in the presentation, try to indicate in our own evaluation, besides the results that the AG has pronounced, but in our own assessment of the system, this is where we locate the performance of the SETAs, and these are the interventions and mitigation strategies for us to do so. In that regard, Chairperson, I conclude by saying, in the white paper for post-school education and training, there is an accommodation for the National Skills Authority, which has a responsibility to monitor and evaluate the post-school education and training. But we have to declare that since the establishment of this department, this particular authority has been located only in monitoring SETAs. And in terms of its function, we are in the process of working out a strategy of expanding its mandate so that it also, look into community education and training, TVET colleges, and as well as universities. But at this point in time, they are, focused on SETAs. And therefore, it is going to be useful for this committee, as we believe, that the National Skills Authority, as an appointed authority to monitor these SETAs, indicate what are they doing, what are the instruments that are being utilized, what will we be doing differently going forward in dealing with this. Thank you, Chair. I think that's how the Zamokuzo, just that aspect only.
Thank you, Minister and the DG Chairperson. Thank you very much. So, as indicated, I am from the National Skills Authority, the mandate which has just been explained, and we have the monitoring and evaluation function, which has mostly been focused on the SETAs and is concentrated. I'm not sure who's moving the slides, but on the slide 12, so that we have 4 core areas. That is research and planning, which focuses on the SETA understanding its sector, governance, which is about providing strategic guidance and controls, and performance, which is ensuring that the SETA achieves the mandates, and then the financial management. So for each of these SETAs, there has been an analysis of what they do and how they've performed against all these 4 areas. As the chairperson indicated, we're not supposed to read everything, so I will go straight to the audit findings, which is slide 15. I think this is where the CFO would do better in. CFO.
Thanks. Good morning again. What we have indicated is the set specific areas in terms of the audit findings, and what reflects there is also the audit action plan. So we've now given an indication of the specific areas and how many findings there are for each of that. Let me just see if I can open mine whilst we're battling there. So you'd find on the presentation, if you look at the CFO's office, there is 1 finding, SCM also 1, as they are reflected there. And for each of those areas, what we've done is to look at the indication of what is the progress of it. So if one looks at IT, for example, there are 10 findings, of which 2 had been implemented. So that's probably the one that we are concerned about in terms of the construction SETA. I'm not going to go into the detail of it, but we're monitoring it into that extent. I think what we've also done for these specific SETAs from the skills perspective is to pair them with another CETA, each one of them, and I think Mr. Kudzwayo, you would also touch on those areas, so that we pair these specific CETAs with those who are quite good in performing, so that they can learn the lessons thereof as well. Another action that we have in terms of trying to address specifically financial issues and supply chain audit is that we have a CFO forum, of which there's a roaming chairperson to then address some of these issues, to also learn from the lessons of other CETAs in the main. That covers the areas. Obviously, as we look at the plan as they stand there, in total there are about 18 findings for the construction CETA, of which 14 is in progress, 4 has been implemented. So there's the bulk of it for construction is still in progress, Chair. Thanks very much on that particular matter.
Thank you, Chair. I think we conclude with Mr. Mvalo just focusing on our approach to recommendations and findings. Okay.
Okay, thanks very much, DG. Thanks very much, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Members. We're just showing there the turnaround plan that we are already implementing. I must mention that the National Skills Authority is already doing evaluation of the annual performance plans to ensure that they are smart. The NSA as well is introducing, very importantly, yes, we are there, it is also introducing the monitoring and evaluation framework, which is quite critical for the work of turning around for all the SETAs. You'll see we are not going to get into detail in all other slides because the content is more or less the same. The department is strengthening the assessment of the annual sector skills plans, which are quite very critical with regard to various sectors of the economy. On governance, we've already made mention that the minister is in the process of appointing the board. The board obviously is inclusive of chairperson as well as accounting authority members. And also very important is to ensure that they do have the skill sets which are required to drive skills development in our country. Importantly as well is that the NSA is developing a standard template to regulate the conduct of board members to avoid conflict of interest by the end of the next quarter. And mention the pairing is something new that the minister has introduced as well. It is the pairing of the SETAs, whereupon the SETAs which have done quite very well are paired with the SETAs which have been having some negative audit findings. If we go to insurance SETA, for example.
Sorry, may I ask, so there is a way in which you want to do this. So, I mean, I don't want to teach you guys how to boil eggs, but my expectation was that what is being shared by different colleagues here, the minister would cover in her opening comments, so that we are able to go straight to a conversation. We have segments to our discussions today. We're discussing construction SETA now, right? We will get to examine each one of these and what the recommendations are in each one. So what is happening now is that the way I want to run this meeting is changing as a consequence. So can I just ask that maybe we go to the conversation? You will get enough time to answer the questions, please. But in future, because we're going to run meetings like this, please, all of you and you, Minister, prepare adequately, cover everything in your opening statement so that we are able to then get to the conversation. I will allow you generous time next time, so please don't worry, so that we can get through the issues. So I'll just give you an opportunity to conclude on construction SETA, and then we get into that conversation.
On the turnaround plan, we're dealing with the recommendations, what we're recommending per each and every SETA. In the slide, turnaround plan for construction SETA, if we can move to the slide that is dealing with performance and financial management. Yes, if we can remain with that one. So what we're saying there is that the National Skills Authority, as part of the turnaround strategy, will hold quarterly performance reviews with the executive of the SETAs. Within 30 days of appointment, the minister will also enter into compact with the SETA to ensure that the mandate is clearly demonstrated of what is the expectation of the SETA for the next coming 5 years. On the financial management, also we introduced something new whereby we are pairing the SETAs. What we have done, we said to the SETAs, please identify a SETA that you think you can work with quite very well, which has done quite very well in terms of the audit outcomes. We'll see here the construction SETA has chosen to work with the Mining Qualifications Authority, and I must say, Chair, they are already working together. Also, something new to be introduced is that the Audit and Risk Committee, which is a key committee for the Accounting Authority, it will also be inducted to ensure that it is aligned with the mandate espoused in the medium-term development plan. Also, something a bit different, it was never there before, is that the ARC will submit a 3-year rolling plan and annual internal audit plan to the department and the NSA as part of the turnaround strategy of the SETA audit and performance with a quarterly reporting. Basically, those, Chair, are the areas that we are going to lift in terms of the construction SETA. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, DDG. I don't know if DG or Minister, you want to say anything? Otherwise, I'll hand over to Honorable Dugmore to lead the discussion.
Thank you, Chair. I think we are well covered. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much. Honorable Dugmore, please lead us. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chair, and greetings to the Minister and all the officials and basically all protocol observed. The first question which I would like to ask, is we're obviously dealing here, and I am going to be focusing on the construction CETA, and I see the colleagues, the Chair and the CEO, have just introduced themselves, so we will be getting there. But, these 3 CETAs that are the subject of this presentation, all had qualified audits in 2023-24. So these are 3 CETAs. But could either the Office of the Auditor General or Higher Education tell us how many CETAs we actually have and how many CETAs received unqualified audits for this year? I just want to, Chair, if you don't mind, just get a quick sense as to, is this really the worst of the worst? Or is this generally a crisis that our CETAs are facing? So my first question, just to get context, CETA, EWSETA, INSECTA, all had unqualified, had qualified audits, and in particular, for the last 3 years, the construction CETA has had qualified. My question to start off with is, how many CETAs do we have as a whole, and how many of those CETAs in the last financial year received unqualified audits?
It's interactive, so we'll work like that for the next 20 minutes or so.
Okay, thank you so much, Chair. With the CETAs, we have 21. I'm going to then request the CFO to take us through the trend in terms of their audit findings. Over to you, CFO.
Thanks, Minister. I know we had it and the...
Sorry, Chair, can I just be very clear about my question? I just want a number. I want to know, the Minister has helped us, 21 CETAs. We've got 3 in front of us who've had qualified audits. I just want to know, that's 21 minus 3, if my maths doesn't just... There's 18. How many of those 18 received unqualified audits? That's my question.
Thanks, Chair. Let me just add, we've got unqualified and also unqualified with findings. So let me respond to the first one as unqualified.
It's really, Chair, about trying to find out of the 18, how many of them had unqualified. In other words, we don't have issues, we're doing okay. It's like, are 18 of the CETAs fine? Is it just these 3 that is a problem? That's what I'm trying to get to.
It's 11 unqualified.
Can I just come in, Chair? From the Auditor General, if you'll allow me, Chair.
Okay.
So out of the 21 CETAs for the 23-24 financial year, it's 14 that are unqualified. 9 being unqualified with no findings, which is clean, and 5 being unqualified with findings. So 14.
Thank you. Through the Chair, I think that helps because we need a perspective here, and I think this focus on what appear to be the serial offenders, the construction CETA, EWSETA, and INSECTA, they seem to be serial offenders that we need to deal with. And in the DG's presentation, he's indicated to us the powers that the minister's powers are very clear. There are written instructions taking over administration, regulation, and policy. So I think from the side of SCOPA, as a contextual issue, if these are the serial offenders, then I think that what we'd be looking for, Chair, as we move towards conclusion, is recommendations about what actual powers, could be implemented. Because I think we don't need 3 CETAs to blot the good work, hopefully, that the others are doing. So in that context, I would like to ask, Chair, the CEO of the construction CETA, if you could just indicate to us when were you appointed as CEO and for how many years have you been responsible for this audit?
CEO, over to you.
Thank you. I was appointed 1 September 2021, ending 31st March 2025.
No, thank you very much. So in other words, in 2021, there was an unqualified with findings, and then for the other years of your appointment, you've had 3, not you, but the CETA, have had 3 qualified audits. Is that correct? And then if I could ask the chairperson of the construction CETA, when were you appointed through the chair? And could you just indicate when you were appointed and how many years you've had as the chair?
Thank you, Honourable Member. I think a bit of context. The CETA at the time, 1920, was under administration. We received our letters of appointment in September 2022. So the CETA AA and board was fully constituted, as in fully to be able to convene and correct and hold its function was in September 2022.
Thank you very much. Then if we could just go further, and this is a question to the CEO. It seems that in what we've been presented with, and I particularly want to refer you to slide 15 of higher education's presentation, it seems the real red lights here are flickering in regard to supply chain management. You will see there is an action plan, hasn't been implemented. It says it's in progress, implemented 0%. Now, it seems to me from looking at the situation that one of the main problems within the construction CETA is supply chain management. So could I ask the chair, we understand that you have suspended certain people in supply chain. Could you just indicate to us how many officials you have suspended and for what reason, and where are those particular cases at the moment?
Thank you, Chair. The CEO will give much more details, but on taking over the...
Sorry, Chair.
Oh, you're asking the CEO?
No, I was asking the CEO, excuse me. I understand the CEO has, because I'm not sure whether it's the board's responsibility to suspend supply chain officials. I think the CEO did that. So my question is to the CEO.
Thank you.
About that. Sorry, thanks.
Thank you, Chair. The SCM issues that are reported as a tracker on the findings are not the area that the SETA is qualified on. In the previous 3 years, it's qualified on discretionary grants commitments, which talks to the legacy issue as the SETA was put under administration twice, less than 10 years, where the particular regime of operating the discretionary grants was following a particular pattern or approach where there were no contracts, and then without contracts, certain projects are still sitting in the commitment register, could not be verified to the satisfaction of the AG. However, because these projects, some of them date back to 2011-12, you can't find the implementers, which also required that whatever is being done, the auditor and the auditee needs to be on the same understanding, which in the past was not the case, and we have recently engaged the AG to the common approach that needs to be taken to clear those legacy issues, because we have no issues with the contracts for discretionary grants that were awarded from 2021-22, because all of them are supporting by credible evidence, including contracts that are enforceable, save for the ones that come from the past, still sitting in the entity's commitments register. Hence, the theme and the area which has been the major contributor of this qualification. Let me then answer the issue of SCM. It's also a legacy issue, because when you check, our institution has had bulky irregular expenditure in the past, which in the past 24 months we do not have a new irregular expenditure that was contributed by this leadership, but it's coming from contracts that may still be existing, that yet to expire or to terminate, so that you can then end that irregular expenditure. Then on the issue of suspension, the SCM manager that was suspended, one, the reasons why. Under administration, there were investigations that were undertaken, which point out what are the matters of irregularities that occurred in the institution, and it also cites who were responsible for those. Unfortunately, the SCM was one of the key areas that contributed to the decision to place this institution under administration in 2020 February, and irregularities from procurement area were a key feature which were investigated and confirmed. The preliminary investigation that was done by National Skills Authority and also by the department, confirming the same findings. And then at the end of the day, when the board took over, it had to implement the recommendation of the forensic investigations that were undertaken. And then those who were cited, including the one that we're responding to, who has been placed on suspension, going through a DC process, and they exercise their right in a particular way, that the process has not yet concluded. As we speak, the matter then was taken to the CCMA to deal with a particular aspect, and the CCMA instructed SETA to hold internal disciplinary process until they are done. So that process is still at CCMA, waiting to still come back based on the judgment or the conclusion that the CCMA will do regarding SCM official.
Thank you through the check. Just to follow up, you've indicated that the manager was suspended. Could you just indicate the manager plus how many? And then so when did that happen, and who's managing supply chain management at the moment?
There were 3 SCM officials that were suspended. One, their matter got concluded, resulting in a dismissal. One, it concluded, resulting in no conclusion of a guilty verdict, and was returned back to work. Then we are remaining with the one that is currently on the CCMA side.
So who's handling supply chain management at the moment in the SETA?
There are 2 managers in the structure of SETA for the supply chain environment. It's overseen by the CFO, and there is a manager that is discharging that responsibility at the moment.
And are you yourself as a CEO involved in procurement?
I will asked maybe to understand to what extent there are delegations in the organization. The board delegates certain powers to a particular threshold where a CEO can approve certain procurement to that level as per delegations of authority. And then the CEO relies on the work that will have been done by the bid committees of the SETA based on what they recommend, and then recommends to the board where the threshold is above the CEO, where it's within the CEO, then the CEO signs approval that are coming from a bid evaluation and adjudication committee, which are independent and objective committee. The CEO does not get involved in the issuing, evaluation, or adjudication of any bid or procurement decisions of the organization, except to approve or recommend to the board based on the work of those committees as established by the treasury regulations of this country and the PFMA.
No, thank you very much. Chair, could I just ask for, as a follow-up, we could get hold of a copy of the construction SETAs, the provisions which allocate certain functions at certain levels. But then what I'm coming to is something I read in the press about this building that the SETA bought, a 45 million rand building. Now, both to the chair and the CEO, I would like to ask, number one, why was a decision taken to buy a building and not lease a building? Secondly, there are reports about problems in regard to procurement, in regard to the actual purchase of this building and the current state of the building, complaints from workers around the building leaking and so on. So could we just get a sense of why was that decision made to buy? And then secondly, are you, as the chair of the board and the CEO of the board, comfortable that no irregular procurement process took place to purchase this building? Thanks.
With regard to the purchase of the building, I will start to indicate that there was no procurement irregularities that were occurred in that process. It followed the due process as prescribed also in terms of Section 54 of the PFMA. Let me also bring the context in that the organization, because of the things that happened in the past, its overheads are exceeding the threshold, which is that we should not spend more than 10.5% of the levy's budget on administration costs. Those decisions that were taken in the past, which in the main affect the areas of remuneration of employees and benefits, resulted in that in the past 10 years, SETA has not been able to comply to have its overheads within 10.5%, including the office rentals, since we got offices in the 9 provinces of this republic. And on that basis, every year we ask the minister to give us an exemption or condonment that we can exceed the 10.5% as it is provided for in the Skills Development Act and the SETA grant regulations. That's how that had been managed. On the executive authority going through these reasons every year, then the executive authority made a recommendation or a directive to SETA. They consider owning your own buildings, because it seems your leasing also is contributing to this situation that you will never comply to be within the 10.5% of grants regulation threshold. And that instruction that came from executive authority was executed accordingly, in the sense we were already in the building that we were renting, and that building became on offer by the landlord who was emigrating and offloading all the assets in South Africa. The Section 54 says before you buy, you must get approval from the executive authority. The SETA, on receiving that instruction, also followed that due process. We did undertaking of due diligence on the structural compliance of the building, and also all other financial, legal, environmental, etc., which experts were involved in assessing and doing that or conducting that due diligence. When the results came out, those results were presented to the executive authority accordingly with the approval and the selling or the purchase amount that was proposed. The market value of the building that was being purchased was almost 78 million. The landlord was selling it for 43 million. And already there was value that was created for government through the transaction. The executive authority granted the permission to buy the building as prescribed in Section 54 of the PFMA. We also went to Treasury to say we can't go on tender. We're buying the building that we're already occupying, which the institution has invested in making sure it was in a condition that is occupiable, which will include petitioning, etc. National Treasury then endorsed the same decision to say, since the executive authority have granted the approval and the accounting authority has also passed the resolution that this is the facility or the building to be purchased, all seems to be in order. Yes, because it was acquired in 24-25 financial year, AG as well as indicated in their audit strategy, they're going to audit that procurement process. But from a compliance perspective, there is no irregularity whatsoever in the purchase of that building. It followed all the processes and steps to the T.
Okay. Maybe.
The Chair could come in the actual condition of the building now. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because there are issues that have been brought to our attention, or my attention at least, around leaking the actual condition of the building. You say it was bought in 2024, procurement, there was no problem with that, but the condition of the building, is the condition up to standard or are there problems?
The condition, according to our assessment and also by the experts, is an occupiable building. It had no issues. Like any other facility, at some point in time, it may have a minor issue here and there. So the building is not like leaking that everyone is sitting in water in the offices or have such similar issues. You may find that there is a leak by reception, which has been subjected to maintenance. It's not an indicator that the SETA purchased a building that was not up to standard, because the experts and the property valuers that valued that building did not find any of the issues of that concern in nature.
Okay, maybe just quickly through you, Chair, a quick addition to give context from the AA point of view. And I think we would have been satisfied that the building that was purchased as brought by the CEO as a submission would have been fit for purpose. In other words, there would have been value for money in the acquisition of the building. But here's a point that I just wanted to honorable members in the committee to understand. One of the few worrying points when we took over the accounting responsibility of the SETA was this phenomenon of exceeding the 10.5 operational cost. I mean, from time to time, a letter would be brought to my attention for me to sign, to write to the minister to request permission or authority to exceed the 10.5 operational or administrative cost. One of the things that the board resolution, which is available for inspection, we asked the CEO, at what point are we going to cap the tendency, the practice of exceeding the administrative cost? We then said to the CEO and executive management, go and investigate mechanisms and measures of how to reduce administrative and operational cost. The purchase and the acquisition of the building came in that context as one of the propositions that were made to see. Chair and the board, currently our lease expenses are higher than you would have if you were to acquire a building of this nature. And I recall records are there for inspections. We asked the CEO to present what was called a financial model that makes sense to demonstrate whether a decision to purchase a building is better than a decision to retain the lease. I think it was in that context. But I want honorable members to understand that one of the other things that we did at the SETA, upon receipt of investigation report from forensics, was to action consequence management. And you would recall that a SETA that comes under administration and where employees have had things done their way for a lot of time where there was no accounting responsibility, there's always a pushback to those decisions. And I think we have said to stakeholders, in our report to the executive authority, to the DG, we have highlighted this point that some of the articles that were leaked to the media are in fact a consequence of a pushback by people who have been for years subjected to all forms of impunity within the organization without consequences. And when there's a board that comes and introduces firm consequence management matters, you're likely to find those pockets, all right, of individuals who then connive with certain journalists to create an impression of a crisis. I must say that where media houses have reported factually inaccurately, factually incorrectly, legally unsound, we have as a board taken measures to either issue resist and desist orders, or we've taken those media houses to the ombuds. And those records are available to demonstrate that we have exercised our fiduciary responsibility in accordance with what has been presented to us by the CEO and the executive management. Thank you very much.
Honorable Dagmos, so your time is up.
Can I have a last question?
Last question.
Last one. No, through the chair, thank you very much to the CEO and the chair. I think it's a question of trying to seek truth through facts. We're not judging anyone here. We want to support the minister in sorting out whatever needs to be sorted out. But my last question just relates to the turnaround plan, which was referred to in the presentation. I think, Chair, it's encouraging to note that the minister will be announcing a new board, and that all the other steps in regard to the Code of Conduct and the National Skills Authority. But I would just, in conclusion, like to ask the Minister or the DG, in regard to this particular SETA and its role in terms of what's outlined in the beginning of the presentation, meeting our skills objectives. I mean, if you look at those three priorities the President announced, growing this economy inclusively, 3%, lowering the cost of living and dealing with poverty, and then the issue of a capable state. Now, for us, a SETA is part of a capable state because it's part of the state. But this SETA, in terms of playing its particular role in your vision, Minister, in terms of the sector of our economy, what would you see as an ideal focus on which sectors within the construction SETA do you think would begin to add value to those priorities that have been announced by the President, the particular focus for the SETA? Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Honorable Member, for the question. I think with the slide 32 that is indicating some of the recommendations that we have actually proposed to implement as we move forward, it is clear that we want to review some of the current regulations on SETA board constitution, and also to maybe sign a memorandum of or service level agreement with the SETA boards. However, the NSA has done an analysis as far as the performance of the SETA is concerned, and they have some of the issues that they would want to share in this meeting to say this is how we're going to move forward. I'm going to hand over to the NSA CEO to speak on those measures.
Thank you, Minister, through you, Chairperson. So firstly, I think specifically the areas that the SETA focuses on, it's material manufacturing, building construction, road and civil construction, and built environment professions, as well as electrical construction. And so the SETA, from our understanding, is responsible for some of the creating of employment in some of the areas of elementary workers, as well as the artisans. Tied to this is the target for production of 30,000 artisans per annum, which is in the National Development Plan. So as the Minister has started indicating, there are measures that we are looking at putting in, such as the assessment of the annual performance of SETAs and introduction of the monitoring and evaluation for all SETAs, as well as the SETA governance and SETA governance indicator framework. There are further interventions that we're looking at, such as advocating for the requirement that each board member of the SETA enrolls with the Institute of Directors just to improve governance and oversight. These are some of the measures that we want to look at. With regards to the performance, the minister has already started mentioning that we would be appointing new board members, but from the NSA point of view, we have a monitoring that we consult with each SETA. We just want to look at reducing the turnaround or the frequency because of the number of SETAs, we were only able to see 8 SETAs in each year. This time we want to see if we can increase that number in each year and the frequency so that there's more, we are able to pick up what we call early indicator warnings where they emerge. I will stop at that point at the stage.
Maybe to add is to say, as part of the measures that we have put in place, is to make sure that those that have actually responded to calling for nominations, they are going to be vetted before the final decision can be made.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dagmo, and thank you very much, Minister, DG and colleagues for the answers. We're not done with this conversation, but I'm going, before I hand over to the members, I need to ask a few follow-up questions for clarity. There was reference to staff that were dismissed. I think they were in supply chain. Did I hear correctly?
That's correct, Chair.
What had they done specifically? What was it for?
Chair, I'm not sure certain issues may be sensitive, but I'll call them SCM irregularities as they are always classified by the auditors and forensic investigators, which that will mean allowing somebody who does not qualify to be awarded a tender also to end up being awarded, and many other irregularities.
No, that's too general. So we're not asking for their names. We're asking what did they do specifically?
One was involved in making somebody who didn't attend a compulsory briefing session to sign a document outside the process so that they appear as if they were in a briefing session, and resulted in an award of a bid to the value of 35 million, which also the same bid at a later stage during administration was set aside by the court as an irregular, unlawful award. That's involved dishonesty of somebody committing corruption and maybe fraud.
Was that the only one? I thought there were others.
It's a host of things, Chair, which we may summarize from the investigation reports, because it's various tenders, close to 50 tenders that had those irregularities involving SCM supply chain, some not advertised within the regulated 21 days, some other improper evaluations where the SCM practitioners were supposed to advise the bid committees. Accordingly, they didn't do so. And then all irregularities that took place in those ended up with the institution having to incur irregular expenditure.
Okay, so this, I mean, the first instance, were you able to establish whether they received bribes? I mean, why would somebody do that for, or did you lay charges if you couldn't establish? Because if there is a direct link between the specific irregularity and somebody getting awarded a tender, that's a problem. One, I agree with you. The second thing, though, is I want to know what then happened to that service provider who had been awarded that contract? Because clearly there was an irregularity that led to the award, and the staff member was dismissed. A, did you lay charges? Secondly, what happened to the service provider?
Chair, for some, the award term or contract would have already been expired by the time these officials were charged, because of the time that these things took place between 2018, 2019, 2020. And in that case, when it's set aside by the courts, you have to follow a process which also to evaluate if there was a financial loss, meaning what they were appointed for, when you put aside the issue that it's an irregular award, where the services or the goods that were supposed to be supplied in terms of that contract actually supplied at the value. That's how then the determination whether there is a financial loss that you need to recover is made. In some of them, there were goods and services that were delivered, and then there was then no recommendation to go and recover against those awardees or bidders. There were only two where we needed to go and follow up and recover monies. We went to court, and the court judged in favor of CETA, and then we have been attempting to follow up, and then one of the bidders have disappeared in the radar. We've used sheriffs, all other resources available to track and trace those owners of those entities. The other one is still in progress for recovery, although the judgment has already been passed by the court that they must pay a particular portion back to the CETA. We are in those processes still to recover the monies owed by this from those institutions that were irregularly awarded, Chair.
Sorry, I don't want to belabor the point, but I asked a specific question. Did you lay criminal charges against anybody as a consequence of that procurement corruption, effectively?
Chair, yes, we have SAPS court cases, and then the matters are sitting with the Hawks for criminal charges laid.
Thank you. One of the things this committee does is to interact on a regular basis with the Hawks. Will you please finish the committee with those case numbers? Sorry, will you please finish the committee with those case numbers, because the Hawks also and the NPA also account here for the purposes of corruption charges. I just have two more questions, and then I'll hand over to the members. I need to just get an understanding. Chair, you said that you got your appointment letters when?
In September 2022, because I do recall that, and it's on record, our first induction session was on the first week of September 2022.
Thanks, sir. But you had not been part of the CETA before that?
Not at all.
Okay, because I do have a question for you in terms of your assessment as chair here. So if I understand correctly, in 2019-20, there was a qualified audit. You were not there. 2020-2021, it's unqualified with findings. That appears to be a slight improvement there. But then from 2021-22, 22-23, 23-24, the audit is qualified. Now, I'm usually appreciative of the fact that turning around a messy governance situation takes time, and that you will not be able to produce a miraculous outcome within a few months. And so the first, basically that financial year, I would imagine you are familiarizing yourself with what's going on, getting people in place. You can fill in the details there. What I want to know is that in your experience and of the organization and your interactions with management, what caused the regression and then staying in the red consistently throughout?
Thank you, Chair. I will be reluctant to agree to the proposition that there was a consistent stay in the red. And I'll tell you why. On our first induction session, one of the things we requested from both the CEO and the management team was an outline of and a dipstick of what the problem is. Because for you to be able to deal with the problem, you need to understand its extent and its level of gravity. So that when you introduce change management or you turn around the institution, you also know what you're dealing with. The report that we received, at least to the extent of 2022, 23, 23, 24, was that from a list of CEO, you'll give me the specific number, from a list of, say, 80 findings, the institution went down to 20, 25, or even less. So much that we had to, and here's a trick, Chair. There is a financial and administrative tricky situation in these SETAs, where as board and accounting authority members, you have to navigate your relationship with the management very carefully, because at one stage, if you push too hard, you are more likely to be seen as interfering. But at the same time, if you stay off too much, you're likely to be seen as a non-responsive accounting authority. So we had to find a delicate balance of both those responsibilities to ensure that we. But to be specific to your question, we were of the view, and based on the report we received, was that all the material irregularities that has led to the findings relate to historical matters, and there has not been new irregular findings that would have put us in the red. And I think we were satisfied based on the report that we've received and based on engagement with the Auditor General's team. By the way, Chair, we arrived at the CETA where the relationship between the CETA and the Auditor General's office was quite, for all intents and purposes, even non-existent, quite confrontational, not cordial. And we fostered that relationship because it's important that these two offices engage on an ongoing basis so that when you do audits, you don't actually pick up these things at the last month of audit, but it becomes an ongoing process. And we're satisfied that there has been, at least based on our observation, that there has been some pockets of improvement to show that these irregular findings are quite drastically reduced and would have acted in accordance with that. Thank you, Chair.
So thanks for that, Chair, but I'm also going to refer at least to the information given to us by the AG, right? And in terms of the irregular, the closing balance of irregular expenditure over the years, 2021, 2022, 758 million, 2022, 2023, 649 million, and 2023, 2024, 652 million. Now, the AG says the majority of regular expenditure incurred by the SETA was as a result, and I think this was referred to earlier in the initial presentation, of the entity exceeding the prescribed thresholds of discretionary grant administration expenditure as required by the regulations. The impact was that more funds was allocated and utilized for administrative purposes that should have been allocated, and you referred to that, right? And when the first part of my questions, I wanted to know from you what, in your assessment as chair, was the reason for consistently staying in the red. And when I stay in the red, I mean that the audit outcome did not improve, ultimately. It's like football. You have 80% possession, you lose 2-0, it does not count. I do appreciate, though, that you may start with a list of 65 audit issues to resolve. You solve 30, right? I get all of that. But when we see a continuing pattern of irregular expenditure, one, there are further issues raised by the AG that the record keeping is exceptionally poor. And there are people who enroll with different SETAs and continue getting the stipends. What became apparent in our hearing was that this has become a cottage industry, that some service providers submit the same people, right? So I'm trying to understand your insight because it speaks to your ability to therefore intervene through management to resolve those issues. But what appears to be a persistent issue, which you referred to earlier on, and I'm going to have a question later for the Minister with regards to these kind of expenditure or cost-based ratios that are required for all of the SETAs. But what I want to know is things like that and what your specific interventions were, because they're highlighted here. Are we still having service providers listing the same people? And you can ask the Chief Executive as well to respond. But those are very specific audit issues that are raised. What makes us feel better is that there is irregular expenditure. It was 700 million, then it became 400 million, it's now 100 million. You look at that, you say, okay, these people are wrestling this gorilla to the ground, right? It becomes a different conversation. But when it's like this, it becomes an issue.
It does, Chairperson, through you, becomes an issue. And what we should be worried about as leadership of this institution is the extent to which the progress is yielding results. In other words, our financial administration and management should be juxtaposed against the performance, all right, of our annual performance plans. And one of the things that gives us comfort, and when we said this in an annual general meetings, at least the past two that I've presided over, is that if you look at our performance from, say, 62% right up until 92% as of last financial year, year ending, it shows you that there is a commitment to ensure that the SETA lives up to its mandate and does the impact that it's meant to do. I will accept that it doesn't make the difference if you reduce the number of findings, but the value still remains the same. And I think that's where I will request CEO to then come in and explain the nitty-gritties of those particular incidents. But from where we sit as an accounting authority, our preoccupation, Chairperson, is to make sure that, in fact, one of the value propositions we always say as board members is that this SETA will not go under administration under our watch, because it has got direct and serious implication, not just for us as a collective, but us as individuals, as professionals in our right. So it is those preoccupations that we're seized with. And one of the things that we first agreed to do was to sign off this DOA document. It's called the Delegation of Authority document, so that certain transactions can be handled at a level where they need to be dealt with without everything having to come to the board. But the board will then remain as that fiduciary structure that's responsible to do a overriding oversight in terms of what needs to be done. And I think from where I sit, I think we have relatively done well in trying to fight that. But I accept that there is an area of concern if there's still a consistent pattern of irregular findings. But those irregular findings, quite frankly, relate to things that were, as we assess them, beyond our comprehension and apprehension at the time when we were appointed as accounting authority members.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Let me give the members a chance. I don't want to monopolize this as Chair. Chief Executive, just deal with, because I asked some specific questions. So I want to know why, despite the reported improvements in the audit situation, you also had your irregular expenditure outcomes, at least a quantum, for 3 years in a row, remaining generally consistently high. The second is the record keeping better? Is the auditing itself better of the conduct of the suppliers? Do we still have people who are gaming the system?
Thank you, Chair. I will believe that the issue of maybe what the AG has called double dipping is partly affecting all of us as SETAs, but some aspect of it is explainable in the sense that because of the economic situation of our country and unemployment being high, some find themselves in the system for longer, and sometimes they move from one program to another, which is a challenge for us as SETAs, in that if the employment is not coming, somebody may have an incentive because of the stipend that comes. I will explain the part that makes sense why some people may be found in different SETAs in 1 year For instance, a short skills program in our regime is a program that takes 3 months. If somebody wanted to start a business and maybe they were on apprenticeships at SETA for painting, for plumbing, for electrical installation, carpentry, they may find it necessary that they acquire some financial or business management skills and decide to go immediately after finishing their apprenticeships to attend that program which services SETA, which when you look at the financial year, this person happened to be in 2 SETAs in one financial year. The major problem will be when they are in one at the same time. That is when we have a problem. But with that, we are being assisted by the SETMIS, which is an information systems within the department that is able to pick if you load somebody who is currently on a program, then especially on apprenticeships, it will say, no, you are not yet finished where you were. With regard to bogus learners that may have been suspected in the past, in 2022, SETA introduced a learner biometric system, which was using facial recognition and GPS coordinates, so that if Malusi is supposed to be attending at Max Building, the learnership program or artisans, etc., the system will be able to recognize, is this Malusi attending? Is Malusi attending at the right place? If
Malusi Gigaba or somebody else?
I'm making an example with Malusi Shays. Then in that sense, the system can easily pick the ghost learner, which was the suspicion in the past. Some people, because of manual registers, they had an opportunity that they may grab somebody in a corner to come and sign attendance register. Those are the corrupt tendencies of the system. The SETA can do much, but also the industry need to get rid of such incentives where they can just jippo the system. So we have that biometric system that we rolled out to avoid that, so that we know this is the right person to be on the program. Did it get resisted? Up to today, it does get resisted by some because it's removing that element where they can maneuver. So this is how this SETA has tried to respond to the issues of bogus learners. And we're still also on the issue, Chair, that we are being qualified on. That legacy matter that somebody was awarded a DG, it's either they never implemented or they started and then they claim that the learner dropped out. The blessing we have had in 23-24 financial year was that at some point the AG then came to party, because there are things that you may never know that they were happening. For instance, where we processed the payment of a project that was once closed because somebody has come to appeal. That has been an eye-opener that some people are still wanting to take chances. We have subjected that to investigation as well, so that we can get to the bottom. Is there merit in this case? And the approach going forward is that for all those projects, we have agreed with the auditors that we're going to go to them. If we can't find them, then the domicilium rule or principle will apply, that this person does not exist. We have given them so many days to respond why we should not cancel and write off these projects coming from 2011, 2012, and then we'll close it in that manner. And currently all the DG projects, as I indicated, got supporting contracts except those ones coming from the past. And unfortunately, I may have to highlight, because we have analyzed who are those. In the main, some of them are sitting with provincial departments, local government, and also TVETs, meaning we know who are these contracts were with. And because of changes in administration and leadership, you find that when you arrive at that institution, no one knows about this program or this project that it was ever awarded, which presents a challenge in the past that we couldn't clear it immediately. But that is where we are now, to make sure this year is the final year. We're saying goodbye to all of them.
All right, thank you so much. Let me give the members an opportunity. Honorable Beasley, Honorable Atkinson, Honorable Neil May. So you get a chance to ask questions one after the other. So we're going to do it in chunks. And then the minister and team can respond.
Thanks, Jess. I'll just run through them very quickly. So a couple for the minister. There's 21 SETAs. Everyone has an accounting officer board costing us a huge amount of money. Have you considered reducing that and amalgamating, reducing the number 21 so we can get efficient, lean machines that actually serve the purpose, as opposed to funding board members for 21 of these organizations and rather going to skills development. So have you given that any consideration? And if not, can you give it consideration? When will you announce a new board for the CETA, CETA, and what will happen to the existing board? And then to the chairperson sitting next to me, so I've got to be careful. And I ask these questions out of due respect. How big is the current board? What is the cost of the current board? And it's clear based on the AG's report, it's evident that the board has not exercised adequate oversight over management's performance. You've been in the position since September 22. We're still having a qualified audit report. And the question to ask you is, should you not resign as chairperson? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you very much for your presentations. Just some questions, just referring back to the situation around fraud and corruption at CETA. And you mentioned the fact that there have been a number of contracts that you'd found were, or employees that were assisting people with corruption. My question to you is that I'm sure you're aware that National Treasury has a blacklist of people that have been involved in corrupt dealings, and that no one in the state should deal with them. Have you referred any of those people, any of those suppliers that have been involved in corruption to National Treasury for blacklisting? The second question is, you mentioned the fact that you were looking to try and get money back from suppliers that had obviously been irregularly appointed. What sort of quantums are we talking about? How much money are we looking to get back? And then finally was just a little bit more information that you mentioned to our chairperson that there were a number of cases that had been referred to SAPS for further investigation. I was just wondering how many cases in particular. Then referring to the presentation, lots of words but not very many numbers, okay? And the numbers I'm talking about is how many people, how many students have actually gone through your CETA over the last few years. I see that you say that you have to comply with the National Skills Development Program and a whole variety of other things, but I'm not seeing numbers to give me any idea as to the value that we're getting out of your CETA. Is it 1,000? Is it 5,000? Is it 10,000? Is it 100,000? Because it would be quite interesting to look at the amount of people that you've trained. Do you keep records where the people get jobs after they've actually been through your CETA? So how effective are you in your training? What value are you giving the people that you train? And for me, a very interesting calculation would be the amount of people that you train, whether they're successfully getting jobs, and the amount of money we're paying you to do that, because that to me would give me far more indication as to whether you've been successful than a whole lot of words about various different structures and plans that you are trying to meet. So, as I said, I'm looking for numbers. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to the Minister and your delegation that is here. My question is, I want to go back to the question with regards to the service providers and those that were awarded contracts across multiple CETAs. Your IT system, are you able to, you said you've now brought in biometrics. What is the capacity of your IT system to check that you are not giving contracts to multiple service providers? The other areas, which is what the Chair, I like the saying, is the cottage industry for training institutions. I mean, every time you have a training institution saying, look, I've got a learnership, I've got some training, and they're just looking for students. Are they just ticking the box? You know, everybody's in the business of training, and everybody's applying to train somebody somewhere. I know I come from local government, and we have many service providers that used to come to us and say, send us, we need 1,000, we need 1,000 for the CETA. Do you actually have a plan that actually maps out exactly in which provinces certain skills are needed, judging by the needs analysis of local government, of provincial government, so that we are actually coordinating the training that is happening? The last question that I had was, is the CETA's Audit Risk Committee fully capacitated to address the audit findings of the AG? And the biometrics, when did you actually implement it? What year? Is it this year, 23, 24, or was it earlier? So that is obviously going to make a big difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Minister.
No, thank you so much, Chairperson and the members of SCOPA. I'm going to take some questions, then others I'm going to delegate the CEO of NSA as well as DG and DDG. However, those that are more operational, the CEO and the chair of SETA are going to respond to those. Maybe I must first refer to the legislative and policy scope in terms of the powers of the minister, as the honorable member has already alluded on, to check whether is the minister considering to amalgamate or dissolve one or two of the SETAs or those that are not performing as per the legislation. However, when I look at the current challenges that we are facing as the country, in terms of the net category, as well as the skills deficit that we are trying to respond to or to address as the country, I don't think as a now, it would be a good move for us to consider reducing those SETAs. However, there is an evaluation that has been done by NSA on behalf of the department, because I said to myself, for us to be in a position to respond or to address the challenges that we're facing in our SETAs, we need to get the magnitude of the problem that we're facing so that we then apply our minds and come up with sustainable solutions in trying to address the challenges that we're facing. So the report is on my table. We're busy scrutinizing it as to come up with a sustainable solution on how best then do we respond to the challenges at hand. However, as we move forward, we believe that it is very important for us to review delivery methodology of our SETAs, because there is a general feeling that they are not responding to the needs of our society in trying to address the triple challenges that we are facing, also to address the net category as well as the skills deficit. The second part that we have to look on as we move forward is to work on reforms of our SETAs to ensure that they are impactful to some of the socio-economic challenges that we're facing as the country. And in terms of the new board appointments that we are approaching, hence we are almost in advanced stage of ensuring that we conclude the matter, we are going to be guided by the performance as presented before us by NSA to make sure that those, because the evaluation is looking at each and every individual's contribution to the SETA. If then those, according to the report tabled before us, are either implicated in all these wrongdoings, or either not performing or contributing effectively to the SETAs, they are not going to be considered, Chair. So that's one of the decisions that I've taken to say those who are contributing to either irregularities or not performing or not contributing to our SETA boards are not going to be then considered for these appointments, because we want to bring on board people who are capable, people who are ethical, people who believe in clean governance and corporate governance, who are going to turn around the situation and respond to the needs of our society, in particular, responding to the 3 key priorities of the 7 administration, as well as addressing the triple challenges that our people are facing. In relation to the double dipping, Chair, I said to the team, because AG, we had a session, they said to me, Minister, the challenge that we're facing is that some of the beneficiaries in your SETAs, it's either they are double dipping, and even if they are double dipping, others, they are deceased. They don't exist. So I said we need to come up with an integrated ICT system that is going to track and trace so that we know that this one is a beneficiary at SETA A, so there is no way that that particular person can also benefit from SETA B. So those are the measures that we are coming up with to ensure that we address the current situation that we're facing. I'm going to then hand over to the DG to take some other questions, and NSA as well as the DDG. Then we move to the SETA to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We've got a slide that is reflect. And I think the CE will take us through it because it's answering the question on the cost of the current boards. I think that is the answer. And Ms. Mvalo will then deal with the issue of the subsystems.
All right, thank you, Minister and the DG and the Chair. So specifically on the cost, these figures, they exclude the running cost, but they're specific to the board remuneration per SETA as of 2023-2024, with specific reference to construction SETA. Based on the annual report, it reflected a 2,046,000 for the year in. It's a sabotage. Yes, yeah. So so basically the fees would range between 438 as the lowest to 6.8 for a bigger SETA, like a services SETA. That would exclude transport and accommodation and so on. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Chair. We, as the department, we have what we call is a HETMIS. It's a Higher Education and Training Management Information System. Is serving about 4 subsystems. One subsystem is dealing with TVET-MIS. So it means within the area of TVET education. The other one is SET-MIS. That's Community Education and Training Management Information System. The other one is SET-MIS. So this one will be within the remit of the SETA system. The last one is HEMIS, which is dealing with the higher education, in particular universities. So what we are doing currently, as Minister has already alluded, we're working with MICT SETA to develop what we call is an integrated learner management system, which is going to assist us in terms of integrating this information so that we can identify those anomalies within our management information system. And I must say that work is a bit in advance. We should be ready for piloting as soon as this year, as updated by the MICT SETA. So thanks very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Minister, through you, Chairperson, the honorable member, the Audit and Risk Committee is fully functional. It is one of the first priorities that we've put in place once we are appointed post-2022 to ensure that we have a functional Audit and Risk Committee. One of the members is Mr. Wesi behind me, who ensures that they work with an internal audit to put in place a decisive turnaround audit plan to make sure that we have all the risks, financial risk, and all related matters fully handled. One of the things that will feed into what Minister spoke about tracking the impact, the board has just approved a track and trace exercise to look specifically what Honorable Dagmore and, sorry, I've forgotten your name, Honorable Edinson has asked. What impact has the work of CETA over at least the past 5 years done in relation to the 3 areas: manufacturing, built environmental, civils, and construction. This exercise should be able to give us an indication of the extent of the money that the CETA has invested in each learner. By the way, there are pockets of excellence of people who come during our AGMs and says, I am a CETA Tapelo Modibane Bazari Fund beneficiary. I now work for the municipality in the infrastructure department. Thank you very much for funding my fees. But those are pockets of excellence. We do not know the holistic picture. So I said to the CEO and team, we need to have a holistic understanding of how deep has the investment that the CETA has made over the past at least 10 years to understand in feeding into what the minister and the department has done. If you were to ask me, having contributed and pioneered a CETA that has at least moved from 62% annual performance plan per year to 82%, and as of 23-24, sitting at 92% in relation to its performance target areas that were signed as an SLA with the Department of Higher Education through the DG, having ensured that you build and recalcate a culture of stakeholder confidence within the center, which, by the way, when we arrived, we found it at low-lying zero, where people did not receive services, where people didn't know who to talk to. And as you can go to our annual general meeting records, you will see that stakeholders have once again found solace in working with the CETA. I can say that we have, notwithstanding the challenges that still remain, turned around the CETA, at least from its financial performance and in respect of its finding, by putting in place what we now called measures to reduce and avoid further audit findings. And I think the relationship between, Chair, with respect, the relationship between this CETA and the Auditor General has quite frankly improved and needs to improve in relation to the performance of these audit findings. And it is in that context that we can say that we are doing our best to turn around the situation. CEO, on the specific issues.
Thank you, Chair. I will start with this performance. As has been indicated, in 2021, the CETA, in terms of its targets, which is an audited performance, was sitting at dismal 22%, which was then improved in 21-22 to 62%. In 22-23, it went to 82%, and then 23-24 to 92%, which shows an upward trajectory from achieving the set targets, including the SLA that we have with the department. And then on the issue of blacklisting those who have been found doing the wrong, it's currently in the process in the main. It's not an easy task. Some of us, our names have been dragged in the mud for pursuing such. And we have even been labeled as the face of corruption that happened in 2017-18 when we were not even in the CETA system. So that process will continue, but it comes at a personal cost as well and professionally. The 5 cases with the Hawks, the quantum, we can supply the committee after this meeting. Those cases where we've referred that monies need to be recovered, whilst the others we're following a normal process after the court order, because you are also not allowed to blacklist somebody unless you got a court order to blacklist that person on the National Treasury. Indeed, we have reported the cases of dismissal irregularities that have occurred, because Treasury keeps that register which officials are implicated. We have duly submitted that to the Treasury. And when it comes to the number of learners that we have, our CETA in the past 10 years has always had the biggest numbers in terms of always ranging between 14,000 to 16,000 learner beneficiaries that are on our systems, either for internship, learnerships, apprenticeships, and also our bursary students, which we fund from undergraduate to PhD for scarce and critical skills for the construction and the built environment sector. as we speak, annually we are able to certificate, meaning people have completed their learning programs in learnerships, internships, artisans, 8,000 per annum. That's the number that this CETA is contributing to this country's post-school education training system. Then when it comes whether we are tracking and tracing, we did a mini tracker and trace study to show us where do the learners go to after they've been with us. Indeed, we saw this trend before we commissioned the bigger one that the chairperson was referring to. When we analyze where do they go, we found that for apprenticeships, which is artisans, they are quickly absorbed by the industry within 24 months. That indicates that that's what the industry needs most, and those people are capable to find employment opportunities. The struggling ones that we found from the conclusions of that mini study, learnerships are the ones that take about 3 to 5 years before they find a meaningful job. That then shows that where are the areas of improvement, and we hope with the introduction of occupational qualifications as per the QCTO and new regime, we'll also see the learnership also coming to the same level almost with the apprenticeships. We're also responsible for candidacy support for those who have finished universities and universities of technology who wants to be professionals, either civil, structural, electrical engineers. We fund that every year, and we do see also this one is beyond the control of the CETA, where you find that some learners do enter as professionals on a professional training program called candidacy with the 9 councils in the built environment that reports to Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, that some get stuck. They do not get to be qualified or be professionally certificated within 3 years. We do support, which talks to the mentorship issue and the industry playing its role, but as CETA, we continue to fund and support for those so that this country can have the engineers and professionals it needs for infrastructure development of this country. And then whether we are doing a tick box exercise, not really at this stage. I've just mentioned the issue of occupational qualifications, which is changing the regime of our learnerships and apprenticeships programs. The issue of our trades being practical is a very critical one at this point in time, in the sense that as CETA, we can't put people in a community hall or a church hall and say we're skilling them. Even the training room needs to mimic the trade that a person is being trained on. For instance, if somebody is being trained to be a plumber, you must be shown practically what are the tools, what do they look like, etc., before you even arrive at the workplace. We still challenge, which is not necessarily a challenge of this CETA, that in South Africa, the construction industry has not adopted technology. And that's also mirrors in our curriculum at this point in time, that even universities in South Africa are way behind in introducing technology in our construction-related curriculum. There is introduction at infancy stage through the CIDB, who's the regulator of the sector, to introduce build information modeling, but technology adoption goes beyond that. We are currently working to forge partnerships with institutions in other countries that have advanced, like the Hong Kong, where they have advanced in terms of adoption of technology, and also merging that with indigenous knowledge. How do you do construction business, and also to factor that in your curriculum. We do match the skills that are required by the industry through the sector skills plan that we update annually as and when there are changes. Like, for instance, when the department publishes the list of critical and scarce skills, we go back to our sector skills plan and update it accordingly to reflect those qualifications and trades that are in demand. Also, annually, our industry employers, they submit work skills plan and training reports, which tell us where they also indicate in those reports what do they see as hard to fill positions, etc. And when we plan our programs, we plan them to respond to such. An example of such matching, I will make an example through the TTM measure that we implement. For instance, when there are going to be developmental projects, we do an analysis of the skills that will be required. An example will be the Puhubai Port project in the Northern Cape. When that was introduced, we did an analysis what skills will be required from a construction perspective to meet the demands of that project, working with the government of the Northern Cape. And then we came with a program or a project to build also a skill center in a town where this will be built, which will assist in terms of training people so that they are ready to take up those opportunities. That is one of the example, just to indicate how we go about making sure that what we are training for in the SETA is relevant to the industry. The biometrics, as indicated, was introduced in 2022, June. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll take the follow-ups together with the other questions because I'm looking at time as well. And please, one question, very concisely. So, and then I will take Honorable Bila, Honorable Skosana, and Honorable Madlala. Sorry.
Thanks very much, Chair. And yeah, thank you very much for that information. So if I'm to understand you correctly, there were about 8,000 artisans you said that you put out in the last year, I think, went through your program. I know one of the great challenges facing the country at the moment is lack of artisans. Certainly if the Department of Public Works is talking about turning this country into a building site, we're going to need a lot more bricklayers and electricians and plumbers and various other people to actually build these buildings. But what I do know is that there does seem to be a lack of training facilities, of actual colleges to train artisans. What has been done to resolve that? Is your SETA assisting with the development of technicons or training institutions whereby more artisans can be trained? Because I understand 8,000 is a fairly decent number, but if you consider the size of the population, and if we do want to get economic growth in the country, these are the people that are going to be building the buildings and actually executing what needs to be done. As much as we need engineers, we need the people who actually put the bricks on the ground. So I'd just be interested to know what your comment is on that. Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. So the Minister didn't quite answer my question because it says here in the turnaround plan for SETA, the Minister will be announcing a new board for the SETA. So my question was a direct, when will that announcement be made? And then also very interesting, Chair, I just added up all those board fees. It's over 60 million. We've got to ask, is that value for money? And I think we all know the answer. Thank you.
Honorable Bila.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson, to the Minister, honorable members, and all present here. One question, as you have indicated. I just want to check, I heard the SETA...
Sorry, I meant for the members asking follow-up. So if you've got two, please go ahead. I meant for the follow-ups only.
Oh, okay. No, it's fine.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, my follow-up is you said you had conducted the tracer study. Is that study available for us? Because that will give us a good idea to actually see all the current and previous beneficiaries of SETA-funded learning programs. If you could make that available for us, thank you so much.
Go ahead, Honorable Bila. We're going to take the rest of the questions up to Honorable Madlala and then give them an opportunity to respond.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson. I just want to check on the issue of oversight. What oversight is exercised over the funds allocated to skills development providers to train learners in specific courses? And then I want to check also if there are any consequences for not achieving set targets which have a direct impact on the mandate of the SETA? That's my two questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Chair. And good day to yourself and honorable members, the Minister, the DG, the NSA, and all the SETAs that are present, and all other stakeholders. No, we really appreciate the presentations that were made here, in particular in relation to the construction SETA that we are focusing on at the moment. Just few questions from my side. I've heard that from the NSA. I think they are saying that they are aiming to have 30,000 artisans produced annually, if I've captured that correct. Yeah, I just want to find out as to what are the current numbers. How many artisans are you producing as the construction SETA? Then with regards to slide 13, slide 13 shows that construction SETA's performance against its annual performance plan has been improving since it exited administration. And I think the chair was specific to say you are at 92%. But however, the same slide says that your performance against the service level agreement signed with the Department of Higher Education and Training is below 50%. So why such a disparity that your performance in terms of your own annual performance plans, in terms of your own target is at 92, but in terms of the service level agreement with the Department of Higher Education, you are below 50%. Why is that the case? Why such a disparity? And then going to slide 15, yeah, on slide 15, on the progress of the audit action plan, as of the 14th of February 2025, it shows that at the office of the CEO, you are at 100% already, which is very good. Also, in the Office of Risk Management, you are also at 100%, which is also very good. But when you look at the other sections, your SCM, your HR, your finance and operations, your project operations, you are at 0%. Why such disparity also? And what comfort, what confidence can you give us that those sections that are at 0 and then which are still in progress, what confidence